All right, Doug Holtz-Eakin with us, the president of the American Action Forum. Doug's also a former CBO director himself. He's had this discussion 4,612 times in his career on television, whether we're going to raise the debt ceiling.
And it is great to be back, Connell.
Good
great
to see you, Doug.
back.
It's, well, I mean, like, are we going to shut down the government? It does kind of bring up a wider point of we do keep going through these things a million times. I mean, should we be having bigger discussions? I mean, some people say, well, why do we even have a debt ceiling if we're just going to negotiate over it and agree to raise it at the end of the day? Does it even make sense anymore, or did it ever?
It was intended to give Congress more control over the debt. It's turned out, I think, to really just be a problem from an economics point of view. I mean,
would you get rid of it?
You do have to suspend or raise. I would get rid of it because right now we're running up to this movie we've seen before, which is you don't know exactly what the drop-dead date is. It's sometime in early September, people are guessing. As you get closer to it, you run the risk that financial markets begin to lose faith in treasuries. You start to see a little spike in yields. All that's just bad news from the point of view of the economy. There's no virtue to it. So, and it doesn't actually control the spending. So I think
it's
lost its usefulness.
Better system, or you just let the markets control it, and whatever the bond market's doing, you kind of react to it in the Congress? Of course, this is a separate discussion from shutting down the government, but they always get lumped in together, and I guess now they're similar timing.
They do.
Yeah.
I think you let Treasury manage the structure of the debt, long versus short borrowing, things like that. You let markets price it, and you move on. The real issue is how much you spend. That's the budget talks, and they need to get a deal, number one, because to fail to get a deal is to cut spending by about $120 billion across the board. That's bad public policy. We have a Defense Department you have to fund appropriately, things like that.
Right.
It's also going to give a big economic headwind heading into 2020, not something we really need. So they have to figure out how to get to yes on this, and it's important for the economy. It's important for the basic issues. And then I think they need to, in the process of getting to how much they're going to spend, offset it elsewhere in the budget, because we really can't just keep expanding the debt.
All right, I want to talk to you while you're here about the minimum wage. The Federal Reserve Chairman Jay Powell was on Capitol Hill today. He insisted the Fed doesn't get involved in this, doesn't take a position on the minimum wage. But we did have this CBO report, really a warning that came out earlier in the week that said, while you raise the minimum wage, say, to $15 an hour, you would boost pay for, they estimated, 17 million workers. But at the same time, you'd cause others to lose their jobs. They said there was a 66% chance that up to 3.7 million people would just lose their jobs. So, you have tens of millions making more, but you have a few million, or 3 or 4 million, actually losing their jobs. So, first of all, does this report sound about right to you, given what you know about the minimum wage, and what would your reaction to it be?
Yeah. When it came out, it was exactly what I had expected CBO to produce, given the economic research on this topic and their track record. Here's the important insight. If you and I just announced, bang, the minimum wage is $15, there's no more money. That doesn't create any money.
Right.
So you're just taking it from one group and giving it to another. One of the groups you're taking it from is people who used to be able to get a job and now will not. That seems really perverse, to take money away from someone who's unemployed.
Of course.
Indeed,
is there some sort of an algorithm or formula that you've come up or have seen that works, where you say, instead of going from, say, $7 or $8 up to 15, boy, that's a huge jump. A lot of people are going to be forced out of work. Companies can't afford it. That we go in increments, or this increment percentage-wise makes sense. Is there anything that kind of works in figuring this out?
Yeah, I think there are two things to note about this. First of all, the $15 minimum wage in that report also is then indexed to the median wage. So it just keeps going up. It's a very strong minimum wage increase. It's also very broad, covers teens, covers the disabled, covers tipped workers who are not in it right now. So that's why you get the big employment effects out of it. I think if you look around the country, you'll see that the appropriate minimum wage is different in different places.
Right.
And the more we keep this out of the federal government, and if, New York City has a high wage sector and it can handle a higher minimum wage, fine.
So just get rid of the federal minimum wage altogether would be one way of doing it.
Get it to match the labor market as much as possible.
Okay, good enough. Doug, always good to see you. Thanks for coming on.